you're a junior designer, you're a graphic designer, you're a senior designer, you're an art director, you're a creative director, and then at some point you run your agency and then you keel over, right?
This, mi gente, is Fabian Geyrhalter, a brand strategist, creative director, and founder who's about to bust the myth of a ladder career. Welcome back to the Corporate Detox, the podcast where we talk about work, ambition, and life in and after corporate. Because, mi gente, we needed this. It's me, Elisa, longtime marketing expert and your favorite corporate escape artist. For more than 20 years, Fabian has built the kind of career that on paper looks like a steady climb upward. He rose through the creative world, becoming a sought-after brand strategist and creative executive, trusted by companies that you might have heard from: Marriott, Warner Bros., Match, Honeywell. And along the way, his work earned more than 50 international awards. His expertise turned into 4 international Amazon bestsellers, and he became a recognized voice in the branding world. But what looks like a carefully designed life on paper is in reality a lot of things happening at once. Fabian was consulting, writing, teaching, advising, building a product company from scratch, all while continuing to grow the career he'd already built. And that is where we meet Fabian, on the hottest day of the year in New York City, trying to fit all the different pieces of his life into a single afternoon.
Well, crap moments. There's so many. It's really funny. When I started Tone Optic, I obviously was wearing so many hats because I'm a partner at Chameleon Collective. I'm the founder of Finian doing that. I'm still doing all of the advising and all of that. Now suddenly I'm running a D2C business from scratch that produces products that need to be tested and imported and sold. And I remember last year there was a moment where I had a big corporate client, the suits, right, in the boardroom, and I was in New York City on the hottest day of the year last year, and I had a 6-hour presentation in the boardroom up there of a Fortune 500 doing my consulting stuff. In the break, which was 2 hours because it's boardroom stuff, I took an Uber to Rough Trade Records because 52 of my Tone Optic units were there and I needed to talk to the owner. And I'm taking the Uber and the Uber comes to complete standstill because it's crazy traffic. I'm running in this heat over to Rough Trade. On the way, someone is like, Fabian. And I'm like, I'm not in New York that often. And it's a mentee of mine who's part of my mentorship program. I'm like, oh, hi, wait, I tell you what's going on another time. Goodbye. I run into Rough Trade, do my business conversation there, get the Uber back, freshen up as much as I can, go back in the boardroom, do the thing. And in the evening, I have a drink and I'm like, well, this kind of sums up like what happens when you do all these things. Like, you just got to try to squeeze everything somehow in, right? And sometimes it's extremely overwhelming. And sometimes you just feel like, is this the right thing? But if it was easy, everyone would do it. That's an old quote, right? And I always have to tell myself that if it was easy, everyone would do it. There are enough people online that give me crap every day of like, hey, the product you're selling, it's so expensive, or I can do this in my garage. And I'm like, please do it in your garage, make it a producible product, give me the price. I would love to see you win and succeed, right? Because you can't. It's hard, right?
Yeah, it's your world. Your whole world is designing your life, designing your career, designing everything. I mean, Fabian, you do so much. Like, you're an author, you're an educator, you're doing all these things. I mean, how do you sleep?
I don't have kids. That's how it works. I sometimes wonder, like, how do I do all of this? But I'm having fun with it. Like, I really enjoy it, right? All of these things, they all somehow strangely connect. And it's, as long as you're having fun doing it, and as long as for me it's strategic and creative, I like throwing myself at it. So yeah, I'm throwing myself at a lot of things, but I'm trying not to do anything, halfway. I try to, whatever I commit to, I go all the way in.
That's so funny that you mentioned they all strangely connect, because I've been trying to find that through line for myself. For you, you say everything is around strategy and creativity. Is that what your through line is? What do you see as your through line?
I mean, in the end, I ended up at the title brand strategist, and that's what I do. And when I think about it, everything that I do is creating strategy for brands. So may that be my new startup, which is a brand in itself. And I'm for the first time doing something like that. And it's nuts, but it is somehow connecting because I'm walking the walk that I usually talk. I'm still doing brand strategy. I just happen to do it for myself. A lot of what I do really comes down to that. And it wasn't always like that. I started as a graphic designer and I hated the title graphic design. I'm like, no, it's communication design. Like you design something strategically. I was always in that intersection of design and strategy. And I always pushed more to the strategic side, whereas most designers are like, let's make it pretty, right? Like, let's make cool stuff. And I always felt like it should be cool, but it's got to be strategic. It has to solve a problem. It has to like form and function. So I do feel that the through line of brand strategy, that's really it.
When you became a graphic designer, did you know that the through line was going to be brand strategy? At that point?
Well, I didn't even know brand strategy existed. I think a lot of the world didn't know brand strategy existed for a long time. I was on Chris Doe's podcast, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, or 8 years ago. And I think that actually put a lot in motion where people saw brand strategy as a thing again. Not so much because of me, but because of Chris. He has so many followers, right? And I'm like, I'm a brand strategist now. And now they're like, so many people are brand strategists, right? Because it kind of, I think it explains something that a lot of creatives had a hard time, figuring out what that is. So for me, when I studied communication design and advertising. There was always this idea of like, I want to come up with cool concepts and creative, but strategic things. I need to sell something, right? So I think it was always there. I just, until 10 years ago or so, I didn't know how to phrase it, until I learned, wait a minute, I'm a brand strategist. I earned it. I did 20 years in the business. I know how to do this now.
We talk about careers like they're ladders. You start somewhere near the bottom, keep doing the right things, and slowly work your way up. And I think most of us grew up with some version of that idea in our heads, but then you actually look around at the people you know, and that's not really how anyone's career seems to work anymore. People move sideways, they change their minds, they leave things they thought they'd do forever. They start something on the side, and then somehow that becomes the main thing they do. The average American worker has been with their current employer for just 3.9 years, which is the lowest median tenure since 2002. So I wanted to ask Fabian, when you were starting out, did you actually think your career would look like a ladder? Because, as you'll hear, his answer was pretty clear. When you were studying communications, did you have an idea of what your career steps would be?
Well, it's not a ladder, right? And that's where we're heading with this. When you're creative, you're a junior designer, you're a graphic designer, you're a senior designer, you're an art director, you're a creative director, and then at some point you run your agency and then you keel over, right? or you start working for an ad agency and then at some point you're the manager. I always knew that I wanted to do my own thing. I always knew that I wanted to do something creative, and I always loved designing logos. For the first 10 years of my career, that's all I did, is creating brand designs. And I loved it. And then at some point I realized, wait a minute, our brand designs will never see the light of day unless they're combined with a great strategy. So I started seeing all of our work that looked so cool. It won all the awards and I'm like, this is great. So I run my own company at that point, right? I did 6 years of being a graphic designer for companies, and then I started my own companies. That was very much like the ladder, right? You work for the man, and then you're like, you have enough business, you start your own company, you start hiring, you're the principal now, That was very much the ladder approach. And that ladder approach for me worked really well until about like 2013 or so. I realized that I'm in Los Angeles, so I'm very close to Silicon Valley, and I started working with a lot of startups. With them, the agency model of, hey, let's do this 6-month engagement. It does not work. They're like, I need the logo tomorrow, I need this and this, right? And so I started doing these one-day workshops for brand strategy with them. I started to rethink, can my business function more like a product? Can it be, here's an engagement, it's 3 months, here's what happens day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, this is how much it costs, either you like it or you don't. And so at that point I realized that the agency system is broken, and I really want to be on the other side of that and figure out how can I productize it more and how can I create something that has more impact in a faster and cheaper way.
Was your first veer off the path creating your own consultancy, or do you think actually that's now normal.
I think this is my big one, because the thing is with graphic design, you always side hustle. Like, even if you have a main gig, then your brother calls you and he's got a film company. He's like, I need a logo. You're like, okay, like I can do a logo. And so suddenly you start having clients on the side. That's how it was with me. While I was having my main gig, I started working for MGM actually, which was awesome back then in Hollywood. And I started doing a lot of their video designs and DVD designs. Oh my God, I'm so old. But that kind of stuff, which was really, really cool. And then the minute that I actually was able to leave for the company I worked for, I'm like, no, this makes tons of sense. I always kind of knew this. I've got a very entrepreneurial family in that sense. My brother is a filmmaker. My dad, he was a violinist. So it's like, there's something about us where we always kind of like want to do our things.
For somebody who's out there who's just like, okay, I'm just following this track, do you have to be talking to a lot of people to veer off?
The cool thing is I hired a consultant. He flew into my office in Santa Monica at the time, and he charged me, I don't know, like $8,000 or $10,000 for the day. And he just came in, he showed off his new camera equipment he bought. He was all about, look at me and my money. And he charged me $10K, which was a lot of money in 2013. It still is to the day, right?
For one day?
For one day. What he did is he basically did therapy with me of like, hey, as a business owner, this is where you're at with your creative business, where you're going to go from here, where are the problems, your employees. He basically did a business analysis in a day. I woke up the next day and everything he said to me, what I need to do, was out the window. I'm like, I want to do what you do. I'm going to do $10,000 in a day. I want to go in and be a therapist to businesses. That literally is where my workshop idea came out. I charge $10K and I still do it to the day. I did 210 of them in the last 15 years or since 2013, if I can count. Yeah.
Do you think that that's what gives people confidence to veer off the linear progression, is to see what they can actually become? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I remember in the beginning, I charged $700 for it. And then I charged $2,000 for it. Now it's like, I don't know what it is. It's like $16K or something like that. But the thing is, yes, absolutely, you're right. You need to see someone do something where you say, wait a minute, I can do what you do. Like in a slightly remixed, tweaked, make it your own fashion way. And I know that I now inspired so many other designers that turned brand strategists to do similar things. And that feels really great. That's kind of like, you take a little bit and you give a little bit, and that's how it works. Yeah.
But you talked about you have to have a passion. Part of the reason sometimes I think that you have to have a passion is because it's hard. It's hard doing this thing.
Hey, I'm going to start a D2C company and I start to design and produce products that don't exist and I need to sell them. I'm like flying to China to find a factory. That is nuts. Like that was actually really, really steering that way. In the back of my sketchbook, as I still call it, even though it's more a notebook these days, at the back of it, I always have one page where I collect ideas for a new product, things that need to get fixed in life, ideas for a new company, ideas that I know I'm most probably 99.9% of the time will not follow through because I'm busy, right? And it takes a lot to do them. During the pandemic, I was left with my 2,000 records and my wife and a beautiful home. And I'm like, I'm going to listen to music. I listened to the same 5-6 records over and over because I could read their spines. All the other ones I never listened to because they're in the wall. It's hard to get them out and like figure it out. So I came up with this one idea a long time ago where I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if you can move it out and you can flip through the records like in a record shop and push them back into the wall and the spines are like books again. Everything is beautiful. And as the pandemic was in the middle, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm listening to 8 records and I've got 2,000 records on the wall. That's silly. Didn't I have an idea to fix that? I went back into my sketchbooks and I'm like, there was an idea. I'm like, how hard could it be to do that?
Oh my God.
And that's how it started, right? It's like literally years later now, you have an answer. You're like, well, this is how hard it is. You have to put in like 80,000. You're risking your own career. You put everything on the line. You know what I mean? Like you have to fly to China. You have to do this stuff. It's going to almost kill you. That's how difficult it could be.
That must have been super scary. Like when you were like signed.
Yeah. It gives you security. You need a lot of fake blankets of security in order to have the guts to do something crazy like writing $100,000 checks, and even that's not necessarily because you have the money. That's just because somehow the journey got you to the point where you thought that this would just be a couple $1,000s, but everything is 10x in life. And now you're at the 10x, but you already put so much time into it. So what are you going to do, right?
How did that feel? Because I think sometimes people need to know that it doesn't feel good. It feels uncomfortable sometimes making these calls.
I remember being in my hotel room in China, the factory that did our first product. Back then, they were like, oh, they actually need the money up front. They need the $40,000 to finish, and they need it now. And I'm in a hotel room in China where I don't even want to be on my computer. I have to like start transferring money and call my wife and I'm like, hey, can you transfer some from our savings? Because I really kind of need it like tomorrow morning. It's super strange. But again, there's something that comes with that pressure where you got to use that pressure for your uphill swing. You got to say like, okay, you committed even more. So it's got to be a success. So you got to push. So you got to do these things. I don't feel much different today than I did back then. It's every day. You just feel like, hey, how are the sales? How are we doing? We need more product. We need this and this. There's always something. There's always a problem around the corner. I think you just have to sit back and pat yourself on the back every day and say, hey, we're closer. Like even though there's a setback, we're closer, right? We learned something, and it's hard to do. It's hard to do.
You talked about how if everyone could do it, they would, but they can't because it's hard, right?
Everyone else is doing the same thing. Like there are a lot of other people that do that. I can do that too. And you just do it. I mean, look, I talked to Travis Rosbeck this morning. He's the founder of Hydro Flask, super cool guy. Oh. He became an advisor to me and now I'm an advisor to him. We do this weird thing where we have a weekly call. We just kind of like, just chat. And he asked me, hey, Fabian, what's going on? And I told him, I'm like, oh my God, like with my startup, the factory, I need more people to work there and I need the whole thing to work better. He said this thing and it was really cool. He basically said to me, he's like, look, that's the problem with entrepreneurship. That's the problem with what you and I and everyone is dealing with if they're not going up the regular ladder. Whatever is around the corner, you have to fix it again. So the grass is always greener. Half a year ago, I'm like, oh my God, I would love to have a factory. I would love to not do it in China. I would love to do it here. Well, now I have it here. Now I'm like, oh, I need Bob and Bill and everyone to work there. And then once they work there, it's like, oh, Bob's coming into the factory and he smells a little like alcohol. Like whatever, right? There will always be a problem. Always, right? And so I think that's the thing. You have to look back at your life and say, oh, well, remember when I had my first graphic design presentation in 1996? Or do you remember when you look at people like Obama or you look at people out there and you're like, what does their day look like? You are nothing. Like your problems, your little things here, it's like they're easy. Like you don't even have a stressful day, right? So I think to me, that's really important.
You lived it, right? This is why you created the product.
And you got to suck it up sometimes. You can't feel bad for yourself of like, oh my God, I was in a situation where I was running there and had to do this and so many things. You choose to kind of like try to progress because it's going to be a hard time in the beginning of every new business or every new venture.
Okay, so I came into this conversation thinking we were going to talk about careers in motion. That was the whole plan. What happens when you stop climbing the ladder and start moving in different directions? But the more Fabian talked, the more I realized that maybe his career wasn't actually about the movement at all. There was something underneath it that kept showing up, even as the form changed. And I was left wondering, what could that thread be for Fabian? As I'm hearing you talk, you're just kind of like saying, I'm doing this. I had this idea. Why not do this? Why not do a podcast for Tone Optic? Your career is in motion. It's not, a ladder. Some also people call it a lattice. By going from merchandising into marketing, I'll know the whole business. But for you, you're just kind of like following a thread, it seems. Is that how you like see it sometimes?
It is, but I also feel in the end, I'm just maximizing what I have. Like the idea of now I have a D2C brand. I already know how to do a podcast. I have my setup. I've been doing it. Why don't I use what I already have and do that as well? How can I maximize and streamline things that I have? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a thread. I don't know if it's emotion. It's one of those two things combined. It's not a lattice. It's not a ladder, but it's not all over the place. I don't feel like I'm going into so many different directions because it's not like one day I'm leading a book club and the next day I still feel it's one identity. It's just that I'm doing a lot of things.
Right. And so how are you managing that? How are you taking stock of what you have and then deciding, what do I do first?
I mean, look, in the end, my career was it all made a lot of sense with the creative portion, right? Graphic designer, creative director, did my work, like letter. Then I started my business, and at some point, businesses need to change. Like things don't work perfectly anymore. You start seeing Silicon Valley, you start seeing things and you want to change them. So it's kind of still very linear.
I'm thinking of what does your day look like at the beginning of the day? Are you shifting gears? Do you block time? Like, what does your day look like?
The time blocking is such a weird idea that I used to buy into, and it never works. I don't have a to-do list. I do have my to-do list is in my calendar, and I shift things around constantly because life happens. But no, I don't have like this part of the day is chameleon and Finian, this part of the day is tonoptic. I'm basically just balancing it as nicely as I can, and I give 100% when I'm in either one of them. I think that's the big thing, right? The whole multitasking is a philosophy that absolutely does not work. The person who says they graded it, like, they need to wake up. You can't. Even though I have 3 screens here right now and I'm looking at stuff, when I'm in tonoptic land, I'm in tonoptic land. When I'm in Finian land, I'm in Finian land. I think that's something for a lot of people where they have a hard time of like, oh my God, like split personality. It's really not. It's like, you have a time where you go to the garden, you give it water, and then you have a time where you drive and go do groceries. It's not much different. You're just, you're just doing different tasks during the day. So yeah, my day to day was very, very divided already in 4 calls, and they were exactly half tonoptic and half consulting. And that's just how your life will be.
Why I said that too is because I always said, I was like, I'm so good at multitasking. I can do a lot of things. And then I realized that like, I wasn't multitasking. I was doing multiple things a day, but I wasn't doing them all at the same time. And I thought that was what it meant. Did you ever regret not continuing the linear path?
This is a very short answer here. No, absolutely not. I'm like, I like what I'm doing. I'm passionate about it. It's what I'm doing now is harder than anything I've done before. But once I'm through it, I know how to do it, and I can do it again and again, and it's going to get easier and easier, right? So the thing is, every day will get easier once you get past the first year or so, right? And it's super rewarding. I mean, it's fun. It's great. It's like I chose to do it. It's my thing, right? I do something that no one else would have done. As far as like coming up with this specific product and the specific brand at this specific time, there's something really satisfying about creating and about innovating and about changing functionality and feeling like you're doing something that people can benefit from. I'm not saving dolphins, right? I'm doing record storage for people who have money to buy it, and I'm making their life like 2% more fun and engaging. But that 2% is still a lot more than a lot of, ladder climbing corporates do sometimes, right? Where they feel my contribution is that small and then it got killed after a year of work. It's like, bummer.
Yeah. I use the word choose there. Commitment. I feel like that's a huge part of those who don't do linear paths. You have to commit because you have all these people who dabble in consulting and try it for 3 months. I'm like, what are you going to learn in 3 months from trying consulting? They don't choose it. It's like a circumstance.
It's so funny because I'm in the world of branding, and before digital business cards were a big thing, I remember every time I helped a startup with their brand, and in the end they received their business cards with their name and their logo, and they're like, oh my God, it's real now. It's a business. I'm doing this. Once you have a business card and you spend money on a consultant and you have a bank account, you kind of need to go, right? Like you now have a responsibility to make this work. And I think in today's age, it's so easy to say, I'm just going to do this little online thing here and here and there. And you don't need to have anything set up. And because of that, you never commit. You don't put money into it. You don't purchase anything up front. You don't need to, like me, I had to buy tons and tons of aluminum for these units that is now in a warehouse. It's actually cost, right? Like there's a lot of overhead. If you just do online business, you dabble around and you're like, well, I do this and I do that and I do that. And you never really put money into it, or, you don't commit. I think that that's what it is. I think that a lot of people would look back at 2 years of a life in motion, a career in motion, and they're like, God, I've done so many different things, but nothing really stands out. Nothing really happened, right? You have to see yourself as a brand. You and I do this a lot. That idea of like, wait a minute, you can look back at your life and you could have done 6 things, but do them well. Actually, commit, position yourself. Like, I am the only person that can do this now, and here's why, and here's that. That's what you do, right? And that can be something totally different from half a year ago, but you gotta commit. You gotta go 110% into it, because otherwise it's gonna be a failure. Because design in motion can go downwards and motion can go upwards, right? And if you don't have strategy and passion and all of that put behind, your motion is gonna just go anywhere and then at some point spiral down. But you wanna be on the upward spiral on the motion, right? It's the only way.
We were trying to put a name to what you're doing, which is like, okay, it's not a ladder, it's not a lattice, but now I'm like, it's not in motion because there's an intention behind it. So like, what would you call it, this career that you've built?
It's super hard, and quite frankly, I don't want to, I don't want to congratulate myself because it's not like I sold 5 businesses for billions of dollars. It's not like that. So I'm not like at that point yet. So I'm in the middle of it, which I think is actually quite interesting, but I don't know how to call it. I like the idea of in motion, but there's an anchor, right? Yeah. And I think that anchor is there, but the wind goes in every kind of direction. Sometimes there's high tide and low tide and whatever happens up there, but you've got an anchor, right? I think for me, I do have that anchor of branding and strategy. And like, yes, I do that for my own company. Yes, I do it for others, but there's this anchor. And I didn't know what to call it, to your point earlier. I didn't know that was it, but I knew deep inside of me, I like to combine strategy and brand. So it's kind of like a common thread. Right? There is a common thread, but you might take the thread to make a sweater and then you make a t-shirt and then you make a shoelace, like God knows, right? It's like, but there needs to be that something at the core of it. And I wish there would be great ways out there for people that are a little bit stuck in their career to go to a place where they can say, okay, I want to identify what that thread is for me if they don't know it, right? It's really, really difficult because with brands, you say it's the brand DNA and you do that. There's a method to define your North Star or your brand DNA. But for people who are lost in their career, it's really hard.
Yeah, that's the thing. Do you think that muscle is important for everyone to have? Is that something that maybe would prepare somebody for the inevitable?
I like the way that you put it. I just worked in a very corporate environment last year with a client. It was really interesting because I was very integrated into the client, which usually I'm not. These people are working in a very corporate environment. They're very happy and they kind of know where they're going. I don't know how happy they are, but they know where they're heading, right? Yeah. And so I don't know if for them having a side hustle would even work in the sense that their days, I mean, they have to work harder, longer, like once you start doing your own thing, I mean, good luck, right? I don't know, but if you're working a pretty boring corporate job and you're not going up the ladder much and you're kind of a little stuck and you don't know where you're going to go, absolutely, you should do something on the side. I mean, it could be as silly as an Etsy shop. It could be as silly as reselling something from Amazon. I think Gary Vaynerchuk always says, go to yard sales and buy stuff and resell it online on eBay. And you're going to make $400 a week guaranteed. Why don't you do that, right? It's like, I think there's so much about just being a merchant or being someone who knows how to sell outside of a corporate environment. It just takes a lot. How do you set up a business? How do you invoice? How do you do all of that stuff? How do you deal with taxes? I mean, there's just so much there. So before you can even come up with your big idea and realize it, it would help so much. I had none of that, but it would help so much understanding that.
But I wouldn't be able to tell you when I was working in corporate. I would have loved to have learned that about myself before. So something like that, like dabbling, do I have this sales skills? Inherently is really good. How do you practice it?
If you only start with that, you're never going to get to the fun part because you might just not be that interested. You might be completely turned off the the hard stuff. I think you need to have some fire. You need to have something creative where you feel like you're solving a problem, you're doing something better or different. I think there are very few people that can only be enticed by financial return. There might be some that say, hey, if I can make X, but the Gary Vaynerchuk example of like, well, why don't you go to a garage sale and do that? Like, if you're into thrifting, awesome, do it. Just buy a couple of other things that you don't like, but they're going to sell better online. Makes tons of sense.
I think it's the experiment.
When I was in high school, I wanted to become a snowboarder or a radio talk show host, which that is a little closer to where I'm at now. I still snowboard and I love it. But my parents, specifically my mom, was like, you got to do graphic design. Like, this is your world. You got to do that. And I'm like, okay, I like that too, but I'd much rather have the fun stuff, right? Yeah. She took me to this guy. He was a job opportunity psychiatrist therapist person. He took me to a 2 or 3 day thing where we did everything from intelligence tests to, like emotional tests to like math tests to art. Like, he literally ran 2 or 3 days in person in his office. And I was like, well, 17, 18, right? Like, I was a kid. He took me through all this stuff because my mom and I were like, no, I want to go here. And she's like, you should go there. In the end, he had a curve. And he said, this never happened before, but your curve is identical with someone else's curve. I'm like, oh my God, who is this person? person. What's my future? Who am I going to be? Mind you not, at this point, I'm living in Vienna. He put that curve on someone else. And he's like, well, that person is an art director in New York. I'm just like, oh my God, literally 3 years later, I'm an art director in Los Angeles. And I didn't even want to be in LA. I studied in Montreux graphic design, but the school closed. So I had to go to LA to finish studies. It's a mind blowing. But I feel like that idea of people being able to do these tests and figure out like, oh, which direction should you go? Maybe there's something out there. That's what I think a lot of people would love that.
I challenge people to do that because somebody told me, ask your friends what they come to you for. What advice are they like naturally coming to you for? It's finding that thread.
I think this is so important. And that's what I tell clients. I'm like, ask your customers to describe what you do for them, because they know it better than anyone else could. I asked a client once, I'm like, I know I did branding for you, but what did I do for you? And they said, you created clarity. It was the first time I could see everything with like glasses on. For me, it's all about brand clarity. It's in the books. It's everything. But I didn't come up with it. They did. They told me that. So I love that when people struggle a little bit about where do they go next and what should they focus on, ask your friends and ask past coworkers and say like, what am I really good at? What would you put me on? It's actually an excellent idea.
One thing I'm learning as I'm talking to you is sometimes I think people oversimplistic and say portfolio careers are a way to protect yourself, right? But there are many reasons why people build a portfolio career. It seems for you, it's like, hey, I found my common thread. Is that a reason for people to build a portfolio career?
Who knows, right? We'll see once I'm done, right? But who lives happier, right? Is it like, because I'm stressed out crazy all the time because of all the stuff that's, going on, but so is someone in corporate. The thing is, even though like there's so many things happening in my life that I need to figure out, having these different careers and these things, I'm somewhat still in control. Yeah. Right? Like I can say, you know what, I'm going to stop my business tomorrow and file bankruptcy. I could. I never would, but I could. Or I could say, I'm going to stop or whatever. But you're in control. You're in control of which client to take on, which client not to take on. You're in control what you do. And I think that a lot of people that are on the corporate ladder, they learn very quickly that the higher they go up in the ladder, even though they think they have more control, the less control they have. Meaning like they have more money, but everything becomes more stressful. They're even more in that one ladder. They can't get out because now they're up on that level and they just have to report, and everyone reports and you keep reporting to someone above you. There's not that much, you don't have much choice. With that, you have choice. You actually have choices every day. That's what sucks because you have to make decisions all day long, but it's also wonderful because you only have yourself to blame either way and you can get out of it, anytime and take on a corporate job. When you're in corporate, you feel like it's hard to do entrepreneurship, but once you're on the other side, you're never going to get back. You're going to stay there 100%. Yeah. I guarantee you.
Because I think it's that control word. You finally get to control your time, where you get your money, where you get your happiness, like all those things. I feel like, how do you put a price on that? We're coming to a close, but I have some fun questions for you. If you were to put three titles, brand strategist, author, now brand builder, what would you say are your three top?
I would say it would be founder first, because I started my own agency in the beginning and did that a long time. And I think with Tonoptic. And then the next would be brand strategist, because that is what I do and I love doing it. And then I think the third one, even though I gave up my title a couple of years ago, would be creative director, because it's still important to me to actually create.
If you were to put shoot, marry, kill to those three things, what would you say?
I think brand strategist would reign supreme because it's the one, going back to your wonderful idea of thread that we kind of, co-created here during this call. That is the thread, and I think it's a thread that a lot of people have. It's just like, once you have a word that, a title, it's great. Like, it feels really liberating. It feels liberating having this call with you today, actually, because I'm like, wait a minute, like motion and like all my titles and I
don't know. I think I'm going to be thinking about this idea of the thread for a while, because maybe we're all a little too focused on figuring out what's next, when sometimes the more interesting question is, what keeps showing up? What are you doing again and again, even when the job or the title changes? I kind of like that question better. Hasta la próxima. I want to say something through this call. I realize I'm saying your name. I'm Spanish, so of course I'm going to say Fabian. I want to correct myself. It's Fabian.
I like Fabian. There's like a passion in there. I like that.
Okay, great.